the LOOPcast. Today's episode brought to you by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life, thank you for sponsoring the show. Guys, we got an excellent show prepared today. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We got a lot to cover today. Erica, what are we going to be hitting?
Okay, so here's our headlines. We're going to meet every single mark today, guys. The fight over deporting foreign gang members. Did the plane turn around? Did the plane come back? And were the gang members still on it? We'll find out. The Houthi strike over the weekend over in Yemen. Media matters. Continual confusion over the rightward shift in media and the pod bros. We're going to dig into that. Little Joe Rogan action, Lex Friedman, they're all coming for you. And there have been, in the Bleeding Kansas segment, there have been disturbing anti-Catholic attacks in Kansas, ongoing, coming up next week. So we're going to break those all down for you and what you can do about it. And as always, Josh is just going to usher in the Twilight Zone and you won't know what hit you. It's going to be awesome.
Oh boy.
How are we feeling today, Josh? We're just in California. You get a little tan going.
I was in California just for a couple of days to work on, some strategy stuff and work with some other like-minded organizations and Southern California, I might add. And it was 66 degrees in northern Michigan when I was in California, and in Southern California it was 52 degrees.
Oh.
So like, this is kind of crazy. All the snow melted back at home, and then I get on the plane, I fly back to northern Michigan, and 5-6 inches of snow. So,
and not to be that guy, you're not wearing green today on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. If you look at historic paintings of St. Patrick, he's always wearing what color? He's wearing blue. In fact, there's a color. It's called St. Patrick's blue. It's not St. Patrick's green. Certainly not St. Patrick's orange. The national color of Ireland is blue. If you look at the presidential seal of Ireland, it's a harp on a blue background. Blue is the national color of Ireland. So I'm showing my respect. Look at that. That's kind of a sky blue color there. That's why I'm wearing my sky blue shirt here today, to honor the Irish. I am not Irish. Of course, I have an English name. I'm only about 12% English, and that's mostly in the teeth. But I did the next best thing. Like a good Viking, I found a beautiful Irish woman, and now I have Irish children. So.
And I have to say, the Scots-Irish in this country have been on quite a run.
Yes.
We have Trump and JD Vance with Scots-Irish ancestry.
That's true.
Scots-Irish up big time. But we got a ton to get to today. I want to fit it all in. But first, we got to talk about Real Estate for Life. Now, new sponsor, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. Have you ever had questions about buying or selling a home? The process can be overwhelming, but it does not have to be. Realestateforlife.org has a network of 1,400 experienced faith-based agents ready to answer all of your questions via email, on the phone, or even right in your local community. Finally, get the answers to real estate questions you've always had by talking to an expert that shares your values at realestateforlife.org. That is realestateforlife.org, or call us at 877-LIFE-US1. That's 877-LIFE-US1. Honestly, even starting to think about the process of buying a home, all that is stressing me out.
Tom needs to blow into a paper bag, but
I know. So guess what?
With
you don't
Real
have to be
Estate for Life,
stressed.
right?
You just call Real Estate for Life. Thank you so much, guys, for sponsoring the show. We appreciate it. Really, the only way we can do this in the Champions Club. So thank you so much, Real Estate for Life, for sponsoring this episode. Wow, do we have a show for you today? So I'm just going to start with the timeline, okay? Basically, what happened? On Friday, the president signed an executive order invoking the Alien Enemies Act, but intentionally did not advertise it. On Saturday morning, word of the order leaked, officials said, prompting a mad scramble to get planes in the air. So at 2:31 Saturday, an immigration activist who tracks deportation flights posted on X that 2 highly unusual ICE flights were departing from Texas to El Salvador, which had agreed to accept Venezuelan gang members deported from the U.S. Hours later, during a court hearing filed by the ACLU, this Judge Bosenberg, federal judge, ordered a halt to the deportations and said that any flights needed to be turned around mid-air. This is something you need to make sure is complied with immediately, he told the Justice Department. This is according to the Washington Post. At that point, about 6:51 p.m., both flights were off the Yucatan Peninsula, according to Flight Pass posted on X. Now, just a refresher for people that may not know what the Alien Enemies Act is. It actually goes all the way back to John Adams, so it's pretty old. U.S. federal law passed in 1798 as a part of the Alien and Sedition Acts. Some from the history class may remember this. Officially titled An Act Respecting Alien Enemies. So the White House put up their justification for the use of this act. I'll share exactly straight from the White House here. Invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua. The justification is that you can basically say for people you're going to war with, so it grants the presidential broad authority to apprehend, restrain, and deport non-citizens or natives, citizens, or subjects of a foreign nation or government with which the United States is at war, or when a nation threatens or attempts an, quote, invasion or predatory incursion against a U.S. territory. Now, the United States sure believes that Tren de Aragua, which they have also by executive order denoted as an enemy of the state, a terrorist organization, has invaded the country. They brought up examples of what's going on in Denver, Colorado, with activity there. These are people with very clear tattoos and affiliation. Many have actually committed crimes on U.S. soil, so it seemed like a pretty no-brainer. We need to use this to go after them. For those curious on who was actually on this flight, we actually got some information from shout out Bill Malugan, does great work at Fox. Per a senior Trump admin official, there were 261 illegal aliens deported to El Salvador yesterday, 137 via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, 101 were Venezuelans removed via Title VIII, this is regular immigration proceedings, 21 were Salvadorian MS-13 gang members, and 2 were special cases for El Salvador. Bukele posted that the U.S. returned 2 MS-13 ringleaders to El Salvador. Some of the rap sheets for those involved include the following: kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, robbery, aggravated assault on a police officer. So here we are. We're in this standoff where a judge basically said these guys got to come back. The United States, Marco Rubio said, no, they're not. They're going to El Salvador. And we're at a bit of a constitutional crisis is what some critics are painting this as.
Oh, another one. Right.
Josh, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, okay, so obviously this judge in particular does not think that the president of the United States has the authority under this Alien and Sedition Act to deport these people without any kind of due process rights, okay? Because they're enemy combatants. They don't get due process. That's just the way. That's why Trump invoked it. So this judge thought, well, you can't just do that. And that would be one thing. And so that would be a thing where you could say, from now on, no more flights can you can't do this anymore. You have to make sure they go through this process before you depart them. But this judge is like, no. Even the planes that have already left, I want you to turn them around. And so this is the whole case of whether or not should one federal judge be able to put a temporary restraining order on all activity, and this is why we need judicial reform. I mean, it should be that what should have happened is he should have said, this is wrong, and we're going to tell the administration no longer to do this from this point forward. But it really should be like a federal circuit should be able to say that rather than just one judge. And look, I've been clear about this for years, if this is the game that we're playing, both sides are going to do it. And so, when a judge in Texas, during the Biden administration put the kibosh on horrible stuff, or one judge in Florida that put the kibosh on having to put masks on when you fly airlines, hey, I'm not against it, but I want reform and I want it to be long lasting. And I want it to be the case where an entire court would have to do it. In this case, he's like, no, not only are we going to argue this over in the courts, but I want you to immediately turn around and stop those planes, which the Trump administration is like, yeah, good luck with that. Because those planes are in international waters and you don't have jurisdiction over international waters. And so the planes did return, but only after they dropped off the thugs.
Yeah.
Right.
Erica?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, I think, with the Alien Enemies Act, it was new to me because it was back from the Adams administration. But I think
the first Adams
administration. Thank you for the clarification. That it went back so far. But I think the Trump administration ran on the understanding that we are, under the Biden administration, we did face not only unregulated open borders where people are just pouring over, but there was an intentional sending of people from these gangs to the United States. So I think Trump, it's probably going to get brought up in court when this is challenged, et cetera, and goes through the process. But they're going to say, this was not an invasion. We're not at war with Venezuela, Colombia, the Tren del Agua. But I think that the Trump administration framing this as this was an intentional invasion by a terrorist organization that purposefully sent people who were sent out of the prisons in Venezuela, Colombia to the United States, knowing the borders were open and that they could set up shop in the world's most powerful, richest country, that I think that he has a good case to make there. And it began with them reclassifying the gang as a terrorist organization. So again, they did, I liked the way that the AP was reporting this, like under cover of darkness, there was a leak and the Trump administration scrambled the planes and tried to get them over international waters before. I'm like, yeah, because they knew what was going to come down the pike. And at least they got 200 and something of them out because...
Well, I mean, this is going to get mitigated fast. I mean, this is going to go all the way up to the Supreme Court if it has to, and Trump will win, by the way. But it's interesting that Democrats are like, some on the left are like, we should impeach the president of the United States over this. And I'm just thinking to myself, do you guys really want to make this your rallying cry for the midterm elections? Go for it. I mean, I think that'd be delicious. I mean, you want to talk about Donald Trump being on the right side of an 80-20 issue. Like, really? You want us to take these? You would have had us have these thugs, criminals, and rapists fly back to the United States. Really? That's what you're going for on this one?
Yeah.
I just, you're not going to get a lot of Americans riled up to impeach a president of the United States over this one.
No,
right. I mean,
in fact, they support it.
Scott Jennings, quickly, prepare for the next 80-20 issue. Dems passionately arguing for the return of Venezuelan gang members despite Trump. I mean, I was trying to actually find like the best case steel man of the other side. Like, why would anyone in America want people even closely affiliated? Well, first off, all the people that are deported were illegal immigrants, right? That's just the baseline.
Right.
This is like, okay, are they gang affiliated on top of that? And with Tren de Aragua, there's a lot of tattoos that are very brazenly, it reminds me a lot of the El Salvador situation,
right.
when Nayib Bukele basically was like, our country is functionally run by the most violent, evil, aggressive gang members ever created. It's like someone created these people in a lab. They have tattoos on their face saying, in order to get into the gang, you have to rape, murder a random person for fun, basically, to prove your worth. And so what he did was he rounded all these people up.
And 23 of these were from the gang MS-13 from El Salvador. So this was
right.
both. This was the worst of the worst.
So let me just put this out here first. The liberal critique is this, from what I've seen. So to try my best to understand the other argument here is it's important for you to understand this. The people in this photo were residents of the United States that were denied due process. They were rounded up and shipped to a prison in El Salvador without trial, without evidence, simply on suspicion of gang affiliation. This was done in defiance of American courts that deemed the action illegal. They could be legal residents. They could be innocent bystanders. They could be asylum seekers. For all we know, they could be U.S. citizens. Now they're trapped in one of the most violent prisons on earth, enduring brutality beyond what most of us can imagine. If you don't find this morally repulsive, then you are morally repulsive.
Okay, so that again,
Thoughts?
The assumption here is that because it didn't go through a court process, that there was no evidence. But who's to say that there was no evidence? Like, you're telling me that INS had no information on these guys? Like, they couldn't possibly ID this guy?
They just rounded up random guys, right?
The difference is that
these,
because of this Alien Act, they didn't actually have to go to a court and say, hey, by the way, we're doing this, and there's no due process. They just literally removed them because it would be like if Osama bin Laden had somehow wound up in Texas, we wouldn't actually have to go to a court and say, by the way, we're expelling him. Of course, in his case, we would have had him executed. But that's my point. Like, a terrorist you don't have to be like, oh, well, let me just make sure, go before court and say, no, it's like, he's a terrorist. He's an enemy combatant. We don't have to do this. That's the point the Trump administration is making. And the left is making a process argument. The left, and by the way, process arguments don't really work that well with American people. Trust me, I know. I've been on the losing side of these a lot. That's where...
Welcome to our world, left.
That's where it's like, well, the process upon which this is doing, I don't like it. And Americans are very practical, and it's not always a good thing, but in general, they kind of lean back on the common sense and they go, okay, wait, what are we arguing about? Oh, you're saying that this plane full of rapists, thugs, and murderers is being sent back, to Latin America, but you didn't like that it didn't go before a judge first? Okay. I really don't care.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say that's I think that's the real point. If you're just talking about how in general Americans are viewing this, they just cut through the process, cut through everything. What is actually happening here? It's basically an unwinning. It's an unwinnable issue for the other side. But I think as we've kind of followed things closely, I mean, the irony is pretty rich here, is it not? That Democrats now are all of a sudden concerned about a constitutional crisis after the country was literally invaded and sanctuary cities openly
Well,
defied federal law about
so
whether or not you can have people here. So I'm not sympathetic to
I
these
know.
arguments at all.
I get the second half of this, though. What I'm trying to get at, I guess, would be that the left has dominated the judiciary for generations. Now we finally got to the point where, after many years, after many successful elections, we finally get a 6-3 court through a lot of hard work and some luck, And even that 6-3 court is mostly just 5-4 sometimes. But the point is, we're like clawing our way back to some sort of sanity in the judiciary. But for the most part, the left has been able to use the judiciary for decades and generations to unwind and thwart conservative policy left and right. Like, we finally get our way to doing something, and then like they get a freeze on it. Oh, we got to stop it. And then by the time we finally win the court case, like, our president might even be already out of office. It's infuriating. So with the court finally at a 6-3 balance, which mean, like I said, it's really kind of like
5-4
or 4.5 sometimes. We have this ability, hopefully, to try to actually get things moving along. But we've had these kind of squabbles before. This is not new.
No, but then the other point I wanted to make on this, based on like the view of the American people on the Trump administration currently, this being one of the things. But I mean, at this point, an NBC poll came out, Trump tied for highest approval he's ever had, as more Americans say the U.S. is on the right track than any time in 20 years. Now, I don't think this is unrelated to what the left is calling a, quote, constitutional crisis. Actually, I feel like in a lot of ways, the left celebrated that for a long time while they were in power, as Josh said, as you have a leader that basically runs on campaign promises, does whatever it takes to get it done, and isn't afraid of the, oh my gosh, I'm going to be viewed as unconstitutional. I'm going to be viewed as, not going with the popular whatever. He's actually moving through kind of the nonsense here and getting things done for the people that he said he would get it done for. So this is kind of unsurprising to me, where I think the left is really trying to make us feel like scared or something like that. But the status quo has been my country being invaded for the last 4 years, and then trying to make it pretend like it wasn't being invaded.
Right. And like you said, it's the next 80-20 issue after the women and men's sports. And I think that, the line that people keep giving on the social media, and even at perhaps my St. Patrick's party last night, is, well, did you vote for this? Did you vote for, the no due process for these men who were like shipped off to this horrible? And I'm like, yeah, I did vote for this. Yeah. This is what I voted for. Yeah.
Now, if you want to check in on Democrats real quick, same poll.
It's a tough time to
NBC
be
News poll, just 7% of Americans have very favorable opinion of the Democratic Party.
Wow.
The lowest number.
Do you know what that means, though?
Tell me.
I mean, obviously, all Republicans hate Democrats, have a poor view of the party, and independents have a sour view of the Democratic Party. Even Democrats have a bad view of the Democratic Party. And the reason why that's the case is because they feel like Chuck Schumer capitulated and signed off on funding the government. So even amongst Democrats, it's like they're all angry. It's like, this is a great time for America.
Do you think, Mercer, I wanted to ask you this because you weren't on Friday. We had a great time with Tyler, by the way. That was super fun.
I'll have to watch it. I was traveling. I didn't get a chance to check it out.
It was very fun. He was great. Lots of Irish banter. But I wanted to ask, so some of the talk over the weekend with the Chuck Schumer follow-up was AOC. Is AOC going to primary Chuck Schumer? In response, because the Democrats were so mad at him over the weekend that he betrayed the party. He rolled over. He said one thing, 12 hours later it was the opposite. What do you think?
Factually true.
Is he actually in danger, though? I can't even imagine such a thing.
If this is the only thing that he does, if this is the only strike, it's not enough. It may be enough for someone to primary him. But if this is the only thing that they have against him, by the time you get to the election, it'll be too late.
Too far away,
so
right?
People forget about this stuff. The next thing, it'll be 100 other outrages. He would have to build up a a series of episodes that betrayed people so that they could say it. Like instead of like, remember when he let the government be funded? Like, people are like, what?
We have such short attention spans.
It needs to be like Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema, where there's like 10, 12 different times where they did something that would really make it that he'd be in trouble. But he did. You hear this? He canceled his book tour.
Oh,
darn it.
Dang it. That's really
I guess he'll have to go back to his patio and putting cheese on frozen beef, showing how much of a
gonna have to.
Which, by the way, is totally not even kosher. Not that he cares.
No,
not that he cares. Yeah, no, not that he cares at all. Okay, so other big news over the weekend that while we were enjoying maybe St. Patrick's activities, we undertook some serious airstrikes here. So overseas, we have Saturday, March 15th, the United States launched a series of airstrikes targeting Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. This was ordered by President Donald Trump as a response to Houthi attacks on the Red Sea shipping. So the strikes focused on Houthi military infrastructure, including radar systems, air defenses, missiles and drone systems, and leadership bases in cities like Sana'a, Sada, Al-Bayada, Damar, and Haja.
Well done.
There. I'm not. This is my like. I'm not a Yemen guy, so I'm trying to brush up on Yemen.
Really?
But I think it's important to know like, this is serious military action. I think people kind of rightfully want to understand why are we doing this, especially when Trump ran on a non-war stance. But I think after looking into it, it makes sense, and I'll give you the Trump administration take on it. So before we get into that, who are the Houthis? I think this is important information. They're a Yemen rebel group.
Who's on first?
Who's on first? They're rooted in the country's Shia Muslim minority. They currently control most of northern Yemen. So right now, Iran supports them with all their weapons, training, and funding. Though the Houthis, they deny this, but it's all pretty obvious. We know what's going on here. Iranians are funding them. So in the Red Sea campaign since late 2023, the Houthis have attacked commercial shipping in the Red Sea, claiming solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Amid the Israel-Hamas war, they've hit dozens of vessels with drones and missiles, disrupting global trade and prompting U.S. and allied military responses, such as this current strike. The Biden administration actually had hit back on them a few times, although not nearly the size or magnitude of this strike. But this is something we've been dealing with for a little while, for sure. And so a key point on this, and Trump watching the strikes was pretty funny. He was wearing a hat that he signed himself with the headphones on watching it. But I think watching Marco Rubio,
like he just got done golfing. I mean, I think it was literally golfing.
I think so. But Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, gave his response on why we're doing this.
Well, first of all, the problem here is that this is a very important shipping lane. And in the last year and a half, the last 18 months, the Houthis have struck or attacked 174 naval vessels of the United States, attacking the U.S. Navy directly 174 times. And 145 times they've attacked commercial shipping. So we basically have a band of pirates, with guided precision anti-ship weaponry, and exacting a toll system in one of the most important shipping lanes in the world. That's just not sustainable. We are not going to have these people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. And so your question is, how long will this go on? It will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that.
Well, what does U.S. intelligence tell us at this point? Because the U.S. had been conducting strikes for some time, but has not stopped the Houthis. So what's going to be different right now? Do you have more fidelity in the intelligence that would make this more successful?
Well, those strikes were retaliation strikes. So they launched one missile, we hit the missile launcher, or we sent something to do it. This is not a message. This is not a one-off. This is an effort to deny them the ability to continue to constrict and control shipping. And it's just not going to happen. We're not going to have these guys, these people with weapons able to tell us where our ships can go, where the ships of all the world can go, by the way. It's not just the U.S. We're doing the world a favor. Yeah. We're doing the entire world a favor by getting rid of these guys and their ability to strike global shipping. That's the mission here, and it will continue until that's carried out. That never happened before. The Biden administration didn't do that. All the Biden administration would do is they would respond to an attack. These guys would launch one rocket, we'd hit the rocket launcher. That's it. This is an effort to take away their ability to control global shipping in that part of the world. That's just not going to happen anymore.
Now, hold on real quick.
Go for it.
Maggie Brennan wearing all green and Marco Rubio with that sky blue tie.
Hey.
I should almost say Marco O. Rubio. He gets it.
Everybody's Irish today. It's true.
So a little added context, this is the shipping route that they keep talking about. I went to go find a map here. Basically, the Red Sea route would be the north of Africa through the Red Sea, but because the Houthis
Slightly
have been,
shorter.
Through the Suez Canal, obviously there. Yeah.
Right. So for the podcast audience who's not seeing this visual, we have on YouTube. And if you want to come over to YouTube, it's a good time. Subscribe there. It's quite a difference. You have to go all the way through the south side of Africa in between Madagascar all the way to get around. So this is clearly a problem we've been dealing with for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, Trump should start calling himself like the Canal King, because like the Panama Canal, the digging of the Suez Canal transformed the global economic order. And what Trump is doing here, as with his strategy in Greenland, to protect the shipping lanes up there from the Russian antagonistic actions. Obviously, this is the most violent of our efforts. Fortunately, the Panama Canal, we were able through diplomacy to wrest that out of Chinese control. We're in the process of doing that. And now, but in the Red Sea, in the Suez Canal, Iran has been backing this violent piracy, essentially, on that whole lane and disrupting all of the global economic order. People are like, oh my gosh, Trump's tariffs are going to wreck the global economic order. Well, these strikes are going to go a long way towards healing the global economic order, because we can't have Iran, we can't have our enemies controlling these shipping lanes. So this is definitely part of peace through strength. And I love Rubio's distinction here between what we were looking at in Biden's strategy for the Red Sea, which is just like a little tit for tat, this sort of like, oh, we're all like equal here. This is like, no, the United States, we have the means to open this up. It's good for America. It's also good for the world, but primarily it's good for us to keep this open. And so we're going to do it. So again, like all of these charges that, oh my gosh, Trump was an isolationist, he's drawing us back onto the North American continent. I think this is an example of no, he's the conservative movement, where it is the populist movement, has room for these international actions when they benefit America first.
Josh, on the other side of that?
No, actually, the thing is, though, like most libertarians, like they want isolationism or whatever. They don't want intervention. And so that's one area where they tend to like Trump. But on this, some are like, this is not authorized by the, the 9/11, after 9/11, the law that Congress authorized the use of force for was against people that are implicated in 9/11. And they said that these people from Yemeni, they're not great people, but they're not involved in that. So you can't really invoke that. But again, what does this get to? This harkens all the way back to 1801, baby. The first Barbary War. Thomas Jefferson, like the most libertarian president you had, right? And so these Muslim pirates were like demanding tribute from all these ships. And the United States is like, wait, tribute for what? Just to be, so we won't kill you? Yeah, we don't feel like paying that. And so Jefferson sends the boys over there to take out these pirates. In fact, it's immortalized in the U.S. Marine Corps hymn. Because if you remember, it says,
"Oh, the shores of Tripoli."
That's right.
Yeah, that's so cool. Little historical.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores
of Tripoli.
Interesting.
It's a great hymn.
And so, all these other larger powers, like, Spain was a big Navy power. Britain was a big Navy power. France, no small power them, but they all kind of paid the tribute. And Americans were like, the heck with this?
No,
and so our answer to Yemeni was the same as for the Barbary pirates. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Except weren't we shooting missiles off the Truman? I mean, we have a warship over there right now in the Red Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, we have warships in
No, I'm just saying, like, so it's interesting.
Near Arab countries? What a shock.
I'm sitting there this whole time.
So I know some people in the Navy, and so interesting context. All this. First, I got to show this picture of Trump. It's just the most on-brand Trump picture ever. Fresh off the golf course, he's just
like watch the polo.
I have to back nine, right?
Oh, he's got the Trump branded polo. He's got the MAGA hat signed by himself. Watching these airstrikes is just like Call of Duty. And look, I'm a peace guy. I'm not a big war guy, as many of you probably know on this program. But I've talked to some guys in the Navy about what we deal with in that Red Sea region. And a lot of people like to think of the Houthis as just kind of, to use a slur, probably like sand people. Like that's a kind of a common slur. Like these people aren't organized. They don't really know what they're doing. We could really destroy them. And I think accurately, as Marco Rubio brought up, like these people are very resilient. We struck them before, and it hasn't stopped them. They continue to commit these acts of piracy, and they've been shooting at U.S. Navy warships. Now, the gall to shoot at a U.S. Navy warship, knowing what that is insane.
Right.
And to me,
that needs to stop.
That needs to stop. And based on the previous administration's foreign policy or lack thereof, it was just kind of deal with this in small batches. We can't do much. Yeah, we can. And Trump's decided to do this. So I would say, please stop shooting at U.S. naval warships where we go. And this won't be a huge problem. As Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, we're going to finish this problem. Like, this is not going to be a problem anymore for us or the world. It's crazy. We've just kind of allowed this to happen. I assume that's under presumption of we don't want to start a broader conflict with Iran, but then stop denying that you're getting funded by Iran if that's the problem. There's clearly a connection here. If you're saying you're not, you're saying you are, whatever. Like, I just don't love the idea of pirates shooting at us or our boys. So that's where I'm at on that. Okay, on to the podcast bros. So over the weekend, I saw this article from Media Matters.
That's you guys. You're the podcast bros. I'm pumped.
Podcast bros.
Let's do it.
You know how it goes. But Media Matters always gives me a good chuckle. Here's the headline. The right dominates the online media ecosystem, seeping into sports, comedy, and other supposedly non-political spaces. A new Media Matters analysis found 9 of the top 10 online shows assessed are right-leaning. Now, for those unaware, Media Matters is basically a communist rag, so their view of right-wing is probably a little bit different.
Yeah, some of the names they had in there, I'm like...
It said right-leaning in the subheadline.
This was like classic Overton window has gone way too far to the left sort of moment here. So, yes, but sorry, continue, Tom.
Yeah, no worries. True. So we found 320 online shows, 191 right-leaning and 129 left-leaning that were active in 2024 and covered news and politics and or had related guests. These shows had at least 584.6 million total followers and subscribers. So someone basically cut up this thread, and it's kind of the new opining. The left doesn't have their Joe Rogan anymore. What do we do? So this guy, Angelo Carusoni, said, what do you see here is the clearest illustration why things are so messed up and why it cannot get any better until this asymmetry is addressed. Put simply, right wing has narrative dominance. So he's from Media Matters as well, but you see this graph here. Joe Rogan, huge bubble. Ben Shapiro, huge bubble. Candace Owens, Russell Brand, Tucker Carlson. Hilarious that they put Trevor Noah. I don't know if I see Trevor Noah as a leader of the movement, if you will.
Well, he's on the left. He's with the blue.
Right, but I'm like, they're using their metrics. They're using subscribership, and I have my doubts as to how organic the subscribership to Trevor Noah is. The Young Turks, Breakfast Club, they're on the left. But anyway, I'm going through this thread, and I couldn't help but you guys shared this video in the thread as well. I think this actually contains a lot of answers as to why do we feel like there's this right-wing dominance. I think it's probably because people kind of left. So here's Bill Maher trying to get someone on trap.
So just like I said, we don't have time to fuck around. I gotta go right at you because, I've known you for a while, and when I first read you, you were a conservative Republican, but not crazy. Like I read you in where? Newsweek, Time Magazine? And I'm not saying you're crazy now. I was gonna say. But you went from just a conservative, leaning right to a Trump supporter. Okay, someplace I would never go. And
I mean, the night is young, Bill.
It is not ever going to be that young. And I'm just wondering what you think now. We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't. That this is really going badly, and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
And that's why you lost, Bill.
Would you like me to explain it to you?
Please do, yes, please.
When I look at what President Trump ran on and the agenda that he's enacting right now, he took a Republican Party that was built on social conservatism, foreign interventions and wars, and free trade and free markets. And he basically took an axe to all of those. During the campaign, he said, look, I mean, he's pretty pro-gay. That's pretty obvious. He appointed the highest-ranking out gay person, Scott Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, which is incredible. And he sidelined the pro-life wing of his party.
He has changed his party, for sure.
Okay, so he believes abortion should be legal for 12 weeks.
But free trade,
on foreign intervention, He's anti-war. He's trying to bring
Yes.
to an end to all of these wars, okay?
By surrendering, but yes.
Okay.
Must be nice to have your own
End the
laugh
war.
track.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair
He's
critique,
on
but
the
it's a
other
critique.
side of another party that is quite pro-war and wants to keep the war going, right?
But
so
let's- but what
okay,
about-
so
what
let me just
about
get to the
these-
third point. And the third point is, and he's not free trade. He does not believe in free trade. He looked at our destroyed manufacturing base. He looked at the downwardly mobile working class. He looked at the fact that working class Americans can no longer afford the American dream. And he looked at why that was, which was there was a handshake agreement between both parties that we should somehow have free trade, which resulted in shipping 5 million good manufacturing jobs overseas to build up China and Mexico.
And some came here.
No, what they did was they
Some-
brought in millions and millions of illegal
Yes.
migrants to compete with the jobs that remained here. And what Donald Trump said was, we have to stop selling out the working class. That agenda that he laid out, socially moderate, anti-war, and anti-free trade
And this-
protectionist, that is a leftist
Sam, I
agenda.
will bring you in, I swear to
appreciate
God.
that.
Well, it's not a
Thoughts?
leftist agenda. It's just not, he's not left wing. Like Donald Trump is more moderate. Here, the problem I've always had with Republicans, it's like, John McCain and Mitt Romney were portrayed as being far right wing, when in fact they were more liberal than Donald Trump was. Donald Trump, he basically in the 2024 election, this is the big discussion pro-lifers had. Like, he wasn't all in for a federal ban on abortion or whatever. He said, I kicked it to the states. It's not really my thing. We're done with this on the federal level. There's other things we want to worry about. It's not like he was actively campaigning in favor of abortion. And in fact, yes, he was kind of down at first on the ballot initiative in Florida, but then after an outrage, he turned around and said he was voting for it. So, like this idea that he's a leftist on abortion is not true. Like what he says on the gay stuff, what she said on that is pretty accurate. He's been pretty pro-gay. I think it's pretty obvious on that. But it's not like, he's been awesome against the trans issue. So I don't know what she means by socially, leftist, and whatever. She's right that Trump is not a libertarian on economics. He's more of a populist. And so that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she kind of backed herself. She backed off a little bit and she said socially moderate. I don't agree with her saying like this is a leftist agenda. And I certainly don't agree with what's his name? Angelo Carusone. So he goes on after that graphic with all of the, the big red bubbles and the tiny little blue bubbles. And he's like, okay, we just need to fund these blue bubbles more. We just need to have a pipeline of donors to fund the blue bubbles more. It's not that the right has won the narrative. It's not that they've won the messaging. It's just that they have the stage and we don't. So we just need the stage, guys. And I'm like, no, you have completely missed the point. And that's what she points out really, really well. They missed the message that actually resounds with the American people as a broad majority. And go ahead, Josh. Yeah.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, okay, so it's not like, to me, it cracks me up that the left is like, oh my gosh, conservatives are dominating. And when they say conservatives, it's just like non-communists.
Like normal people.
Because Joe Rogan
Right,
is not, in my mind, a
non-AC.
conservative. He's just not a communist.
Right.
But they go, oh my gosh, conservative voices are dominating podcasts. We need to do something about this. We need parity. We need equity. We need to get involved. And it's like, dude, you control just about every media institution. Think about the last 60 years. You have completely dominated every major metropolitan newspaper, with the exception of the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal. Sometimes you had MSNBC, NBC, CNN, ABC, CBS. You had just about everything. It was only until 1996 where Fox News got started, and it took a while for them to get legs before people even know they were there. You were controlling the TV news and local news. You
lost it because it was so bad.
The left dominated the media, and then they try to do it with this sort of Walter Cronkite, like I'm going to appear very, very intelligent and soothing, and not try to pretend I'm a cheerleader. But you are always left wing in your story selection and everything you were doing. So finally, with the internet, with podcasts, we were able to come up with an affordable way to spread message to millions of people. And
it turns out the message resounded.
Podcasts
Right.
to create podcasts and to listen to podcasts, because it's like, finally, I it's not like, I mean, look, you were given a chance. The Washington Post, New York Times, you guys have a token conservative every once in a while. Now, Ross Douthat actually is a conservative, but the Washington Post, Jen Rubin, she was your conservative. I mean, she's a lefty. Give me a break. So you never let these voices on, and you don't just have normal conservatives who are just the reporters. And so you completely dominate all of news, except for like a token person every once in a while. So we go to the podcasts or to talk radio. That was our way to give balance, you idiots. And so you look at that medium, you're like, oh, conservatives have an advantage in this medium. Yeah, because it's the only one you wouldn't, we didn't need your permission.
Right. I was like dialoguing with a family member about this, and his argument back to me was, because I was like, well, the left has dominated the media, and he's like, well, but that's all. No one's watching CNN anymore. One's watching MSNBC, and his explanation. I know, and I was like, the reason why do you think that is? And he's like, well, because of the dawn of the internet. And I'm like, no, you knucklehead. They had the internet too. If their message was so great and actually resounded with people's real lives day to day, they would have dominated the internet. They have the same technology that we were able to tap into. The reason why they failed is because they kept swinging more and more extremist left. And not only the media, and I think this gets missed too in the conversation, the progressive movement still dominates our education system, which means that even the people who have been consuming increasingly right-wing, what they want to call, I would just say like not communist media, those people were raised, they had those people in the public school system from the time they were 4.5 years old until they were 18. And then who knows where they went. If they went to a state school, they had them even longer. They went to an Ivy League, they got them even more intensely for 4 more years. And the fact that most of the American population has been educated in the progressive movement, and this is still happening, tells you something. It tells you that reality smacks people in the face, and they're like, I got to find a voice somewhere, and they're going to go looking.
That's why over a dozen states have passed school choice in the last 3 years, and we need Texas to deliver. We're working hard on the ground on that.
If I may, I think you made an important point, Erica. It's the labeling to me, the right wing or conservative or whatever label that Media Matters wants to slap on common sense is misleading. I think it goes back to just common sense.
Piers Morgan is not right wing.
and people, the guy from
I have Piers Morgan on there as right wing. I'm like, where are you coming?
No. But I actually think that's an important point, because what the very extreme fringe elements of the left consider to be right wing or consider to be dangerous is so far from what the reality of the average person considers that to be. Like if you're considering Piers Morgan, and even like Trump himself is a Democrat from 20 years ago. We're not talking about like,
Batya's point,
Pete Buttigieg or something emerging and becoming right. Exactly. So a couple things come to mind. I mean, this article came out over the weekend from New York Times. Quote, we were badly misled about the event that changed our lives. And it was a long and winding article basically saying that we were lied to about the origins of COVID, and that's bad that we were lied to about that. And this is from the same publication that aggressively smeared anyone suggesting that, hey, the thing that came from a couple miles away from the government-funded Wuhan lab about coronavirus, the fact that it might have came from there was enough to make you lose your job, be removed from polite society, and basically be ruined for the rest of your life. Same people that said if you wanted to go outside or you wanted to see your family members that were dying, you should be a pariah. And I think this gets to a point that I think the left is missing here. And Josh, you've said it many times, it's going to take a couple cycles to really punish people for this. But if you leave the kind of left-wing media bubble apparatus and start saying things that are pretty common sense, for example, hey, maybe this came from Wuhan. Hey, maybe I should be able to leave the house. Maybe we shouldn't coerce everyone into getting a vaccine. If you leave, you're forever gone from the left. Whereas I think the new coalition that Trump has built is a place where you can actually speak your mind and disagree. If you leave the quote right-wing coalition and go to the left, no one's going to punish you. You can kind of come back because there's an open exchange of ideas. This kind of paired in with this extreme censorship we saw, government-funded censorship, by the way, to ruin people's lives, to call people misinformation, whatever names. It wasn't a space to actually ask questions, which actually used to be a hallmark of true liberal, small L, or would there be capital L or small L liberalism, to question everything, to have open debate, never to censor. That's no longer available in the modern day Democratic Party unless they kind of rebrand at this point or retool. That's completely owned by the Trump side of the aisle right now, largely through fumbling, as you guys brought up, the opportunities they had before. So that's why you get Joe Rogan, right? Like Joe Rogan has anyone on his show and he asks them questions. If you would have asked that question 20 years ago, who's doing this more? It would have been the left, not the right.
And let's not forget, government funding through USAID propped up
100%.
millions of dollars to a lot of these left-wing outlets.
100%. So it's like and that's why Trump exposing that, Doge going after that, and at the same time, this really bizarre campaign where Biden clearly was not mentally there. Kamala Harris clearly was not an organic candidate, chosen from the top, no primary process, really bizarre and unlikable and not relatable. And so we got hit over the head with that. And then all the major news voices were saying, this doesn't make sense. If you had an organic platform that you ran by yourself independently and you weren't getting something handed down to you by the people funded by USAID or government money, New York Times, Reuters, et cetera,
Right.
then you're asking those questions. And to an organic audience, those questions need to be answered. And they
Right.
were.
Well, the New York Times said in shocking discovery that, we were lied to, even though they were the liars doing the lying. It's right along the lines of Jake Tapper writing his memoir now about how Joe Biden was sharp as a tack, and then I was lied to.
Jake Tapper, who mentions that how much he loves veterans and remember them as cover to make it sound like he's not a communist. He is a communist and he is awful. He's an awful garbage human being.
Capital C. Okay, sorry. I know we got a lot to get to today. We got situation going on in Kansas that I think we need a really thorough explanation of. So, Erica, what's going on in Kansas? Why should people?
Yeah, we're calling this one Bleeding Kansas. And as everyone knows probably at this point, Catholic Vote has been tracking anti-Catholic attacks on our churches and on holy sites and statues since 2020. And this attack that happened over the weekend on Saturday morning, really disturbing, ties to another story out of Kansas. But Saturday morning, there was a vile attack on St. Patrick's. Ironic. St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Wichita. You can see some images here if you're on the YouTube. In another instance of why elections matter, the FBI has actually joined the investigation into this attack. There was defacing of the sacred space. A satanic website was spray painted on one of the walls. They burned an American flag in the middle of the sanctuary. And the church did announce that all services masses were canceled until further notice as they're assessing the damage. The Kansas Catholic Conference.
In the parking lot, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's me.
I know. I was like, let's keep going the sacraments, guys. So that'll be my one little critique here. The bishops, the Catholic conference in Kansas, super solid guys. They came right out and said, look, this is a hate crime. This was targeted at our faith. And it's a predominantly Latino parish as well. It's in a working class neighborhood. So this wasn't like an attack on the wealthy or anything like that. And yeah, it was disgusting. This is the 491st attack. So almost 500 attacks on Catholic churches since May 2020 in the last 5 years, and the 12th one this year. Even more disturbing, it gets worse. This is coming on the heels of another anti-Catholic attack. This is a so-called satanic, they call it a black mass, that's going to happen at the state capitol on the 28th of this month. So it's coming up. This is an explicit parody of our Holy Mass. Historically, these kinds of rituals from the Satanic Grotto have involved the desecration of a consecrated host. That's the body and blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord. They say that they're going to, quote, dedicate the grounds of Kansas and our legislature to the glory of Satan by indulging in sacrilegious blasphemy. And they've also characterized this as a pro-abortion protest. The organizer, Michael Stewart, he said in an interview last week, we have wafers. He doesn't want to say whether they're consecrated or not, because they want to add to the mystery. But the reason really being that if they're not consecrated, it's probably not going to get as many Satanists out. What if it is, they're liable for stealing. Basically, they could come under legal.
That's how bishops in the past have been able to go after these so-called black masses, because if it is a consecrated host, they admit to that. Then the bishops could say, no one in this state has the permission to take that from us, which it would be stolen.
Yeah.
And that's how we've been able to shut them down in the past.
So the governor of Kansas, Governor Kelly, who's a self-described, who's raised Catholic, she did order. So last week, as this was all revving up on social media, people were becoming aware of it. People were outraged. She did say she was moving the protest, quote unquote, which is the satanic ritual. She was moving the ritual outside of the Capitol building, so they could no longer hold this protest indoors under the roof. But she did say that they could go and do the protest peacefully, whatever that means, out on the state grounds outside of the Capitol. So Catholic leaders from all over the country now are calling on the governor to make a stronger stance, because some people are couching this as, well, they have free speech and so they can do whatever they want. Sacrilege is not free speech. This is a deliberate mockery. And if they have a consecrated host, a deliberate desecration.
Can I dig into that? Sorry to interrupt
rights. Go
really
for
quick,
it.
because that's the main argument here, is that somehow they,
Satan
similar
is
to
not
if
free
we were to
speech.
have a Catholic mass there, that they have the same rights to do their religious whatever. So do they have any merit to that argument under historical precedent?
Well, if the state of Kansas wanted to say no religious services are allowed on the state capitol grounds because it might be favoritism, the state of Kansas would be within their right to do that. The state of Kansas would be in the right to allow for a religious ceremony, let's say by Methodists, Muslims, Catholics, or whatever. They actually also, by the way, have the right to exclude a service if they think it's not in the public interest. There's this notion that if a government allows speech, that it must have viewpoint neutrality, and has to allow it for everyone. That's not necessarily the case, actually. There is precedent under the Supreme Court where the city in Utah, I forget the name of it now, had the 10 Commandments on the public space. And so another religion said, oh, well, if you're going to allow for that, you need to allow for ours as well. And the city was like, yeah, no, we're not. And the Supreme Court upheld that city, saying the city has the right to engage in speech as well. That's the law. So the state of Kansas has within their right to say no to all religious ceremonies, or to allow some, and if they allow some, that doesn't mean they have to allow all. And so they could say no. They have a constitutional right to say no. So don't let any of these people like the ACLU try to fool you. Like, oh, if you let one in, you have to let
The
all.
ACLU's been busy. They're trying to get satanic masses in Kansas, and also for us to turn around flights and bring gang members back to the country. They've been real popular lately.
Good job, ACLU. Yeah, I mean, I think too, this came up. Do you remember Michael Cassidy, the guy who smashed down the idol of Satan that was it Iowa or Idaho? Sorry, guys.
It was Iowa.
Thank you.
Iowa, yeah.
The other I one. Iowa. And there was the loud argument, well, if you allow the image of the nativity at Christmas time, you have to also allow the image of Baphomet, the satanic idol, because that's our religion. And when you actually look at Satanism and the grotto, like, it's not a religion. And the way that the leader of it, who's been Michael Stewart, has been talking about it, is this is a protest. This isn't that like somehow we worship Satan or anything, but this is a movement it's in reaction to. And he literally said, we are doing this because the Catholic Church has been imposed upon us. We are doing this because of the pro-life legislation that's being pushed upon us by the Kansas Catholic Conference. So it's not like he's saying, oh, we're going to go have this religious ceremony. He's literally saying we're doing this because we hate Catholics, because somehow in our lives we've been put upon by the Catholic Church. So we are going to take the thing that Catholics love most and adore and would lay their lives down for, and we're going to take that and we're going to do unspeakable acts to it in public That's completely different from saying, oh, there's a Methodist, there's a Muslim prayer, there's a this prayer. It's a completely different thing. And like you said, Josh, the governor, the Kansas legislature, all of the leaders there are bound, I believe, to protect Kansas Catholics from this kind of humiliation and insult in the state grounds, which should be open and representative of all.
Right. I mean, could you imagine if someone conjured up a religion, and the focus of their religion was to, like eat pork just to, hey, and screw you Muslims and screw you Jews, like as a way just to get back at them. Like that would be told, like what? It's not even
people
like
have done that, by the way. They throw
it's
pork into mosques as like a way to.
Right. And we rightly understand like that. It's not like you have a religion. You're just going out of your way to be an awful human being that's trying to insult people who, like, you might think they're crazy for their views, but let them be who they are. Like, whatever. Like, but no, this is just obviously an attempt to outrage and humiliate Catholics. And the religious leaders of Kansas have a responsibility, right, Erica, to make sure this is not on the Capitol grounds at all, that there's no space for this kind of hatred.
Right.
It's to call it a religious ceremony, it's hatred cosplaying as religion.
Exactly. And one more note. So thanks for putting this up here, Pogo. For those of you on audio, everyone wants to know, what should I do? Obviously, we're talking about like political action. We are putting pressure on the governor, putting pressure on the Kansas Capitol. But at the same time, it's primarily a spiritual battle, right? We know that this is part of the spiritual war. So calling on all Catholics to fast and to pray, offer your Lenten sacrifices, that our Lord not be desecrated in Kansas, and that he instead be glorified. And I'm just going to do a teaser. We put this out on socials over the weekend. Massive teaser. Join the Kansas protest with Catholic Vote. Stay tuned. Details are dropping in hours. So make sure you are subscribed to Catholic Vote on the socials. Make sure you're reading your emails. Make sure you're checking the Loop tomorrow morning, and we'll have more details on what you can do, both spiritually and in the public square. So,
well, and there's a lot of Irish, and so we celebrate St. Patrick's Day because of that, and that's kind of cool. But the real spotlight this week is the Feast of St. Joseph coming up on Wednesday. It's a solemnity. That's right. In fact, the whole month of March is dedicated to good St. Joseph, and so he is the terror of demons, and St. Joseph is the one we need to invoke, as well as St. Michael, just to have these spiritual demons that are, prowling around Kansas trying to seek the ruin of souls. We need their prayers.
Speaking of, Josh enters the refinery, St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's curious. You're a big food guy, Josh. What's on that traditional or trendy St. Patrick's Day food menu? What are you eating tonight?
Well, in general, I try to reduce the carbs, but when it comes to St. Patrick's Day,
no holds barred.
My wife makes the most wonderful Irish soda bread. It is so good. We all look forward to it. So that's a big thing for us. We go. I mean, it's funny because corned beef is big for St. Paddy's Day, right? That's actually it came about because the Irish immigrants in New York City wanted to make a big deal of St. Patrick's Day, so they saved their money and they bought a better meat, which was the corned beef, which is actually more of a traditionally Jewish food. It's not like, you're getting it in Ireland, but that's okay. And it's great. And we made it our own. The Irish did. I should say we.
We. What do you
I'm showing my respect today. Everyone's Irish on St. Paddy's Day.
Irish Dad. That's true. That's true.
So we got that corned beef and then the Irish soda bread. And we actually, $10 to buy 4 sticks of Kerrygold butter. That stuff is
that stuff's so good.
so good, dude. It's crazy. So that and the cabbage and all that. So I'm all in on that.
Now that we're done with Josh eating, and in the chat, let me know if we got any St. Patrick's Day recommendations. But we got to know from Erica what's going on with you.
Gosh, we had a rager last night. We had like 85 people at our house. Probably 50 of them were small children.
85 people.
It was great. Yes. Thank God
crazy.
The weather held. It didn't start raining till 9 p.m.
So what is that, like 5 Catholic families?
Yeah, exactly. That's like my 5 best girlfriends came over and it was 85 people all of a sudden. Praise God. No, it was awesome. So we invite people from like the homeschool group, from the parish, and it's just an open potluck. And we had some great food. We had the little soda bread came, but we had all these shepherd's pies. This one friend of mine, she made shepherd's pie. She simmered the meat filling in Guinness for 5 hours.
Oh, that's gas. That's really good.
My gosh, it was so good. I had never had this before, but it transformed my St. Patrick's Day. So thank you, Natalie. Big shout out.
I do say that nothing makes me feel more like a poor Irish peasant overlooking 50 degrees and rocks than eating shepherd's pie. It's
With your
shepherd's
12
pie.
siblings.
Yeah, with all my 12 siblings packed in a small home. That and like beef stew. Like
Oh, so
beef
good.
stew
I do
hits the
love beef
lips.
stew.
I'm listening to Parting Glass being sung kind of soundly over a
I love
fireplace.
Parting Glass. My daughters and I sing the 4 part. It's great.
Funny enough. Okay, and I would love to hear that. But top article from Refined was a St. Patrick's road tripping playlist. So
Oh my gosh, yeah. Big clicks today. Check
also,
it out.
and sorry, if I could just let this one rip real quick. I don't know if I'm going to make any Irish people angry. I prefer turkey as opposed to corned beef when it comes to a Reuben. I do.
That's
I gotta
okay.
put it
That's
out there.
okay.
You like what? What'd you say?
Turkey. So
Turkey.
you do a Reuben, but you do turkey instead of corned beef. I like it better.
That's okay. I don't like corned beef. I
the
don't like the
gallows.
Guinness.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say it. My mom's maiden name Murray, so I got a little Irish in me. But look, turkey, and I'll supplement with a little Guinness. But back to the 45 Irish songs. Parting Glass, shipping off to Boston.
That's a good one.
Come on, tell me shipping off to Boston
I like
get
it.
you fired up. Just on a random day. Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah.
Dropkick Murphys are
That's
great.
good.
Super fun.
Any Erica, I feel like your music library is deep. Do you have any Irish songs
yeah,
you should
I
put
mean,
people onto?
Like I said on our Christmas special, the Chieftains Christmas album is my all-time favorite. I just love a little sadness in my songs. You know, you get a little
That's
sad
facts.
twinge before you just let it rip, and the old Irish wake, all of that, Finnegan's Wake kind of stuff. Yeah. It's all good.
Did you do like Irish dance? I could totally
No,
see you were.
no,
you never did. None of the
no.
girls did Irish dance. Anything like that?
No, I
could see it.
I watched a lot of Riverdance growing up because it was like the days of Michael Flaherty, and it was always on PBS for free.
Wait, we got Rosie, producer
Rosie.
Rosie chipping in 6 years of Irish dance.
6 years of
That
Irish
looks like
dance.
some of the most physically challenging dancing I've ever seen. It's crazy.
It's all
Well done,
legs.
Rosie. We got Irish. The Scots Irish are up this year, man. Talk about this is like a banner year for Scots Irish in America.
JD Vance with the socks. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know about all the socks, but okay. Now we got slide Twilight Zone. Josh, you're up first.
It was only a matter of time.
Oh no. I just saw the title. Oh, guys.
Chess.com, which is a home for millions of players of chess, they like to play online. They decided to send
Me
out
one
a
of them.
tweet. Huh?
I'm a big chess guy.
I mean, I play it from time to time. They said, accepting new name ideas for this piece. They wouldn't even say the word bishop on it. I love that. Isn't that great?
Bishop.
So apparently, got to remove any sense of religion at all from every walk of life.
So
Never
for the
gonna
audios, this is chess.com's account on X posting a white and black bishop piece saying accepting new name ideas for the piece. 39.3 million views, like nuclear viral on Twitter. And top comment, this lost at the ballot box. So people weren't super thrilled about changing the name of chess is like thousands of years old, right? Is that too much?
Yeah.
Time?
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, like, someone in reply to this account, they took a picture of a pawn and said, "Is this you?"
Smush. That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, these guys, this is like a losing proposition. The only kids I know who play chess obsessively are Catholic homeschoolers, at least in Connecticut. I don't know. Maybe there are other pockets of seculars who hate religion teaching their children. Oh, wait, they're not having children. Oh, so just by demographic, the bishops aren't going anywhere. Jeepers.
I did like one recommendation that somebody made for this. Here's some other ideas. He said, Cardinal, Friar, Monsignor, Deacon, Abbot, Prior, Vicar, Conquistador, Crusader, Templar,
Crusader would be the ultimate. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, man. You know what? I will say some of the most fun to be had on YouTube rabbit holes are watching the chess hustlers from New York City. They'll record themselves playing and they are smack talking the whole time. It's like chess is thought of as this kind of elite royal game that only rich, smart people play. And then, I mean, smart people for sure, but then you go to New York City and they are smack talking mid, killing you. If someone sits down in their seat, they will destroy you. And they'll let you know they're destroying you while you're doing it. Highly recommend. Good time.
One of
Okay.
my favorite One of my kids' favorite movies is is it Finding Bobby Fischer or Saving Bobby
Oh
Fischer?
yeah, is that the one with
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, or is that the
No.
Tobey
No.
Maguire was
Way
Bobby
older
Fischer in
than
one of
Toby.
them?
This was, like, way far back.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, Chess Kid, Chess Genius. It was a good movie. All
Didn't
right.
he kind of
Name
got
of
screwed over by the Russians? They all colluded when he was over there to basically lose in unison so that he couldn't win, and so he quit.
Yes, that was Searching for Bobby Fischer. That was it. Joan Allen, Lawrence Fishburne, Ben Kingsley. Very good. That's a great movie, and it's actually like you could show it to your like 10 and up year olds if they're into chess.
Okay.
Oh, a movie rec for America.
Erica.
Oh boy, Senator Mark Kelly of the great state of Arizona. Turns out he has massive ED, and no, I don't mean that. I mean Elon.
Where are we going with this? Okay.
He has Elon
EDS.
derangement syndrome. This is Mark Kelly. So Mark Kelly, if you remember, just to set the stage a little bit, Senator Mark Kelly, who enjoys a 93% lifetime rating from the League of Conservation Voters, climate change activist, massive supporter of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was terrible, mandating electric vehicles. He served on the Energy, Natural Resources, Environment, Public Works committees, really made a name for himself as the astronaut who loves the Earth. He touted massively that he was one of the first to purchase an electric vehicle because he's going to save the planet, and Greta Thunberg loves him.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he does not love the planet as much as he hates Elon. Here he is. He's saying, I'm getting rid of my Tesla and I am buying. Now you just roll the tape.
Worth playing in its entirety how ridiculous this whole thing is.
Please.
Hey folks, it's Mark Kelly here in Washington, driving to work for the last time in my Tesla. When I bought this thing, I didn't think it was going to become a political issue. Every time I get in this car,
you thought it was a moral issue at the
60
time.
days or so, it reminds me of just how much damage Elon Musk and Donald Trump is doing to our country. Talking about slashing Social Security, cutting healthcare benefits for poor people, for seniors. It's one bad thing after the next. He's firing veterans. I'm a veteran, so I have a really hard time driving around in this thing. So I think it's time for an upgrade today. So this is going to be my last trip in this car. There were some things I really liked about it. There are things I didn't like about it.
So brave.
But that doesn't matter.
Hashtag brave.
What matters is, doing the right thing. I think it's
Yes,
Do you think he's going to switch to a Volkswagen?
Oh, no.
he
traded it in for a Chevy Tahoe, a massive vehicle.
Gas guzzler.
It is a gas guzzler.
But
this is the same. Oh, go for it. Update
it's
us.
a union, built by union. So he's
pro-union.
Got to find some way to.
There he is.
There he is.
Look at that sucker.
Got a big old Tucson.
I got to say, I'm not up on the lingo on most of the stuff that the kids say, but like one of the things that the kids say is because they play so many of these video games, they talk about NPC, which is a non-player character. And that is Senator NPC right there. He's a guy, like, most nameless, faceless, boring. And the thing is, as somebody noted, you're railing against Elon Musk, right?
Yep.
Mark Kelly's an astronaut. And there were astronauts thrown up in space, left for, sorry, we can't get you. Our own government couldn't get him. Elon Musk's rescuing astronauts. You would think this guy would be thankful. It could have been his, up there.
This was from Katie Hyde this morning as she goes, gotta love that while Mark Kelly was trading in his Tesla, Elon Musk was flying into space to save Kelly's fellow astronauts who were abandoned by Joe Biden's auto pen. Boom.
Yes, that's the auto pen, which, by the way, I told you about all those pardons.
Yeah, update.
And so today, President Trump said that the pardons of the J6 committee are not valid. And he's voiding them because that was done by an auto pen. It wasn't actually done by President Biden.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So we'll see what happens.
His truth on it was so funny. He said, the quote pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many other are hereby declared, and now we get all caps, void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. because the fact that they were done by AutoPen, Trump wrote on social media shortly after midnight. I do love that he just tweets after midnight. Like tweeting after midnight has got to be such a rush. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did them may have committed a crime.
That would
Well,
be
and it's also Trump loves having fun on social media. So he actually shared a graphic on his social media of the photos of the previous, last few presidents. One obviously of himself, Donald Trump, and then now the current president, Donald Trump. And the photo in between, instead of Biden, it's just the AutoPen. It's not even an image of Biden
I saw
himself.
That. I think JD Vance tweeted it.
So
he's got a point. Like that was actually going to be mine. He has a point. We have examples of staffers signing things on his behalf that he knew nothing about.
Speaker Johnson talked about that.
Right. It's a fact at this point that it happened at least one time. So yeah, of course people are freaking out. They're like, this is so unconstitutional. You can't just declare that. And I was like, did everyone forget the last day in office when Joe Biden just declared that the Equal Rights Amendment was law? Like, isn't that the new precedent? You can just tweet out stuff and it becomes law depending on which side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah, and Georgetown law was like, amazing. We have a new amendment. Good job, Georgetown law.
Oh my goodness. What an embarrassment that school is.
I saw a guy at Mass this weekend wearing a Georgetown law sweatshirt. It was all I could do to not go up and ask him about that Equal Rights Amendment. But I didn't. I didn't, and now I need to go to convention.
I would have, yeah.
For thinking unholy thoughts.
The other thing that Georgetown law has been up to is when I believe it was the U.S. attorney in D.C. Was trying to make sure that they didn't have DEI stuff in there. Father James Martin himself, board member of Georgetown Law, came to the defense saying it's actually Catholic and that this is a good thing. And I don't remember when it was being forced to act against the HHS secretary, Kathleen Sebelius.
They invited her to speak on campus.
But yeah, no problems with that.
Yeah.
So also, maybe this can be my final wrap. I know we're way over, but did you see the announcements about the new Synod stuff?
No, I try not. When I see Synod, I kind of.
I know. So I'm almost like at this point, because, and everyone was like, oh, he's really cracking down. He's making sure the people that were doing it before, he's naming names, saying that churches need to be a part of this. I still don't know what it is. I've tried. I promise I've tried. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. I don't think there's going to be any functional impact on the church or change anything. So like, what are we doing here? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I want to get it. And I don't know why it's being used as this kind of cudgel by a left wing.
There's nothing to get. It's word salad. It's just like word salad sandwich. And
I really do. I promise I do. I'm sending that out to people. I really want to understand the Synod. I want to know specifically what it's going to do, what's going to change. I haven't been able to get those answers after years now. It's like a year. It's a multi-year thing at this point.
Mm-hmm. It goes
That's all
on
I gotta
and
say.
on. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to enjoy St. Patrick's Day. And maybe I'll switch into some light blue at Best of Josh to be more traditional. But this was a great show. Thank you all for joining. If you want to help us out, go check out our sponsor. Thank you to Real Estate for Life. Leave us some reviews, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, where you can do that. You can subscribe here on YouTube. Appreciate that. Like the episode, drop a comment below. Let us know how we're doing. You can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. You can join the Champions Clubs. Best way to support us, catholicvote.org/champions. It supports everything we do, not just the Loopcast. But thank you so much to all of our champions listening right now. But of course, pray for us. Pray for what's going on in Kansas. It's our latest prayer request. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Fidelis, pray for us.